All right, I am live and I want to say welcome and good evening. Let me get situated here and I just want to say good evening to all of you that are joining me today. This is an installment this is an installment on day two of our fast. As I've been sharing, we are fasting for 21 days. And so I'm sharing morning and evening, I'm sharing inspiration for you so that you may remain steadfast on this fast. And really, these are the things that God is revealing to me that I'm sharing with you. I'm excited about this lesson. You may say, Keith, you're excited about all lessons. I am. I'm excited whenever God speaks. But I want to share that sickness cannot stop the purposes of God in your life, in you fulfilling God's purpose in your life. There's a lot of times when people, especially when we're talking about chronic illness, when people are diagnosed, they, of course, have a lot of emotions and feelings around this, right? And a lot of times, many people I've discovered even give up. But I want you to know something, my friend. I don't want you to give up. And I want you to know that God's purposes that's within you will be fulfilled. Now, let me go ahead and start, first of all, by defining what I mean by purpose. And please take notes. Get your pen and paper and take notes on this. Purpose is defined as God's original intention for your life. God's original intention for your life. In Jeremiah, it says that before God formed him in his mother's womb, he had called him to be a prophet of the nations. David shared that God knew him while he was in his mother's womb. Before you were made, God purposed you. He gave you a purpose in life, which was his original intention for your life, something that you would to do, something that you would perform, some impact that you would make on your life. And I want to share this, folks, that no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, that your life holds meaning and your life holds purpose, and God has given you a purpose. God has given you a purpose. Now, I also want to share something because if God has given you a purpose, it does not take you 35 to 40 years to figure that out. I want you to tap into your relationship with God in prayer in this time of fasting and asking God, what is my purpose in life? What is it that you would have me to do? My life is your life, God. Show me what you want me to do. And folks, that's the starting point of you moving toward fulfilling your purpose. Now, what I'm talking about now, when a person is dealing with sickness, when they're dealing with um, a diagnosis, the thing that I want you to focus on is don't focus on the diagnosis. A few years ago, I was diagnosed, or I had a preliminary diagnosis of a cancer. I can't even remember now what it was. Intentional blocking, and the doctor had said, "This is what it is. This is what I believe it is." And then I had to go through all these series of tests, seeing oncologists, seeing a urologist, and I believe, thank God, I believe that I was healed by divinely by God. The urologist and the oncologist had said, well, just sometimes things just go away. But I said, no, I know that some things that God will remove from you. But what I've discovered that when I got the diagnosis, what I did not do was that I did not focus on the diagnosis. I went to God and I started really focusing upon faith. And as I shared earlier today, faith is a belief that grows into a conviction. It grows into a conviction that cannot be shaken. Even though this diagnosis shook me, it did. Man, I'm telling you, was I afraid? Of course I was afraid. But I operated from the mindset that I am going to stand on the faith of knowing that I am complete and I am whole. Faith is based upon the foundation of his word that says that he is a divine healer, that he bore all of our infirmities and he took upon our illnesses, and by his stripes we are healed. By his stripes we are healed. And so faith takes God at his word. And that's what I had to do. I had to take God at his word and not focus upon the diagnosis. Folks, when we focus upon the diagnosis and we begin to talk about the diagnosis and we continue to rehearse it and we share it with others, thinking about all the possibilities, what we're doing is that we are meditating upon the diagnosis and not meditating upon the word of God. Psalm 1 says that we must meditate upon the word day and night, not upon the diagnosis. What I've seen so often is that people will focus upon what they don't want instead of the possible outcome that comes through our faith in God. We must focus, my friend, on our faith. And we also got to focus upon our purpose. I've seen this happen where people throw up their arms in surrender and I guess I can't do that because, I've got to go maybe to chemo, radiation. I've got to go to dialysis. And so therefore it stops me from doing what God has called me to do. In 1984, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and I forget the exact cancer. And I got a call. I was at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I got a call from my sister and saying, listen, you need to come home now because mom is severely ill and the doctors are giving her less than a week. Okay, this is 1984. My mother was 62 years old. She had just retired from Oak Forest Hospital in Oak Forest, Illinois, as an LPN. And I got into my 1974 Volkswagen, blue Volkswagen, and I went down I-65 from Fort Knox, Kentucky, all the way to Markham, Illinois, where I was living, or really Ingalls Memorial Hospital. And when I got to the hospital there, my mother was sitting up in the bed, and she says, what are you doing here? I says, Mama, you're here in the hospital. I'm coming to check on what's going on. And I says, they told me that I got to be here. And I was like, crying and sobbing. My mother said, baby, do you believe that I've worked all of this time to retire? And I've been anticipating my mother was a preacher's kid from Alexandria, Louisiana, where my grandfather pastored. And my mother shared the story of how all of her life she wanted to be a missionary. And now at 62, since she was able to retire, she was going to be a home missionary, domestic missionary. She's always on the missionary society at our church. And I remember their statement was that charity begins at home and it spreads abroad. And my mother was going to be bringing God, the message of God, the gospel to people domestically in our neighborhood. And what she did was, she says, no, I've waited all of my life for this. This is my purpose. Purpose, that in French, that raison d'etre, my reason for being. My reason for being. And she says, God is not going to take me when I have not fulfilled that which he had placed in my heart for me to do. I want you to hear me now. I want you to hear me for those that might be dealing with a malady right now. You might be dealing with a sickness and you feel like giving up. Nope. God's going to use you. Anyway, my mother lived 4 years. They said she's going to pass inside of a week. She lived 4 years in qualitatively good health until the last 6 months of her life, when she told me, she said she was at a family reunion in Birmingham, Alabama, in Alabaster, Alabama. And Mama said, you know what? I guess she made peace with my dad and that side of the family, because she came to the Lee family reunion and she said, baby, I am ready to go home. And inside of 6 months of that, she went on and she made her transition. The point that I'm making again, folks, is that when you have your purpose to fulfill, sickness cannot stop you. My mother said she was going to do the work and the will of God. I can tell you another story about individuals who have been diagnosed. And even while they were going through their diagnosis, I'm thinking about a dear friend of mine, and in Fort Worth, Texas. And I would go to chemo and radiation with him to his appointments, and I would actually drive him there, and I was a part of that. And he would always tell me, he would say, well, listen, Keith, I got to get back because I've got things to do. He was really big in terms of Angel Tree, which was a year-round project for him. And he coordinated. This man had stage 4 cancer as well. And here he was coordinating because he understood that was his purpose. I can't let this sickness interfere with my purpose. And folks, focus on your faith and on the purpose of God in your life, and not on the diagnosis. When you operate in faith, your illness cannot stop you or block you. When you are operating in faith, you operate in signs, wonders, and miracles. And folks, I believe, yes, God still does miracles. I believe that there is a miracle with your name on it. But you can't just focus on that diagnosis. You've got to build yourself up in the faith of God. Well, listen, my friend, I got to stop here because I've got to get ready for our 7 o'clock time of study. I hope and pray that this is a blessing for you. Please subscribe. Please share it with others that it will be a blessing to. All right, I'm going to be sending it to all of my friends, cousins, and relatives. All right, but listen, I'll see y'all at 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern for our time of study. All right, then.